Welcome back to another episode of our Culture Cafe, the talk show where we talk especially with some of the YouTubers who have been visiting Chongqing recently. And with me today, I've got Nico, who's been touring Chongqing with us for the past couple of days. Welcome to the show, Nico.
Hi, I'm pleased to be here.
It's good. So, starting off, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you and your husband decided to start a YouTube channel?
Yeah, of course. Well, my name is Nico, and me and my husband Jack, we work on this YouTube channel together. We both live in Beijing, but originally we lived in Nanjing. So we moved to Nanjing to teach originally, and we realized that there wasn't really that much information out there in the
Yep.
the internet world about China. So we decided to start making videos because we thought it would be a really great resource for people like us who are moving to China. We were already really interested in making videos. We've been traveling, so we thought, well, yeah, let's bring that to China and start a YouTube channel, and hopefully it'll help like other expats. And gradually over the years, it's kind of grown and developed, and we don't just have expat audience, we've got a lot of Chinese fans as well that live in China and overseas. And now we've kind of started making films not just about living in China and how helpful it is, but also traveling in China and the different cities and things that we visit.
Okay. So what was the thing that made you decide, let's make a YouTube channel, let's start putting videos up online and share them with everyone?
Really, it was just because when we were researching, we had this really good PDF about Nanjing, but there really wasn't anything else. I think there was one video from the Monkey Abroad in Beijing, and I was like, okay, this is the only resource of this city. And to be honest, I'd never even heard of it before we were moving there. And I thought, well, I can't just be the only one, right? So obviously there's loads of information about Beijing and Shanghai. They're very popular tourist destinations, and a lot of people live there. But some of the smaller cities, they just don't exist. People, there
are a lot of places where you just can't find a lot of very reliable information, and if you do find, it's very often old and outdated and incorrect at that point.
And I mean, I like reading blogs, so I have a website as well, but videos are just the best way to show something. You can really, rather than describing it with words, you could just show it. You don't have to describe it. So yeah, it was really just to help people. That's just what we want to do.
There has also been this major shift. It used to be that you would find blog posts with photos of places that you wanted to go to, but now everything is sort of turning in more to video. Because it is just easier to show what something looks like in a video than it is with photos.
Definitely, and we've always been really creative. My background was I was a graphic designer, and Jack's always really liked making videos, so we just kind of thought, well, let's just blend that together. And to be honest, I didn't really watch very many YouTube videos before we started. And if I was to start over, I would probably do it a little bit differently. But I'm pleased that we started it because it's also kind of a really nice creative outlet for us, because we're going to have all these memories and all these videos from everywhere that we've been for years, which is another reason why it's also great.
So what are some of the places you've been to other than Chongqing, where you are now?
In China?
Yes.
Well, got quite a long list there. So we've been to quite a few of the bigger cities. So we've been to Shanghai, obviously we lived in Nanjing. Around that area, I've been to Suzhou, Hangzhou, Xi'an, because my parents came to visit, we took them to Xi'an. We went on a big trip last year to Guangxi, so we went to Guilin and Yangzhou and Longji, and then we went to Yunnan, Dali, Lijiang, Kunming, Tagliping Gorge, Tianjin, so close to Beijing, Shenzhen. Actually, that's probably, we haven't done as much of southern China because it's so far away from Beijing. You can't really go for a weekend. But we did go to Shenzhen. Oh, am I missing anywhere? It's quite a lot, right?
That's quite a lot. It's way more than me, and you've been in China for a shorter period of time than I have. So.
Yeah, and then on this trip, just before we came to Chongqing, we went to Hunan, and we stayed in a village in Hunan, and we went to Zhangjiajie.
Famous Avatar land.
Yes, we went there.
Place.
We like to travel.
Obviously.
Yeah.
It's sort of obvious.
Yeah. So
what do you think is one of your favorite places in China as a whole? Doesn't have to be Chongqing just because you're here.
Oh, that's really difficult. There's so many places that I like for different reasons. Me and my husband, we really like to get off the beaten path and go into nature, and we really like quiet places. So I've really enjoyed some of the more like nature spots that we've been to. I really enjoyed our trip last year to both Guangxi and Yunnan because we did a lot of hiking, and it was just not really what you think China's going to be like. But then I also really like going to the cities as well because they're just a completely different world. Chongqing has probably been the most interesting city, though. I'm not just saying that because I'm here. I do think it's a pretty cool city. I like the architecture and the
Well, this is
vibe,
Chongqing is the city I've lived in the longest since I moved out of my parents' house as well. So I tend to agree with that statement. That brings me to my next question. So obviously you're not from China originally, but you have spent quite a number of years living here. So what's it like being a foreign YouTuber in China, especially considering how much attention foreigners tend to get, even more so if you're walking around with a camera in your hand?
So it's kind of weird, obviously, like you said, with the camera in hand. And we actually did a video recently about what it's like to film in China. And I think people think it's going to be really hard, but actually I don't find it quite as difficult. Most people are quite welcoming to it. In Beijing, you don't really get as much attention as you do compared to other cities, I've noticed, because they're kind of used to a lot more tourists. So, and there's a lot of foreigners that live there. Whereas I did notice coming to Chongqing, we have had a lot of attention. And I did a little bit when we first moved to Nanjing, and I kind of got used to it, but it does feel a bit weird. There's like loads of people have asked to have our picture taken, but also chatting to us. And actually it's been really, really nice. It's definitely been an interesting experience to remember that, oh yeah, this does happen in China.
Do you think there's any difference between you making your videos in China versus making them back in the UK where you're from? Do you think it would have been a different experience?
Yeah, definitely. And also, we actually haven't made any videos in the UK. We actually started it when we moved to China, and we've been in China for 3 years now. So I think we made one video which was more of a cinematic style. And I think I would maybe be a little bit more embarrassed, I guess, because everyone can understand what I'm saying. And also, because it's where I live, I personally don't find it as interesting as, say, you know, a supermarket in China, which obviously is filled with stuff that I find intriguing and I want to try, and it's so different. And for me, it's nice to be able to compare and find something exciting in just daily life. Whereas I think if I was making videos back in the UK, I wouldn't maybe feel quite as creative because it's the normal.
It's just the same as everyone has already seen before.
Yeah.
But I guess it also makes sense because your audience predominantly, I guess, is a foreign audience looking at how China is different from what they're used to. But then I guess it's also, you said you do have quite a number of Chinese visitors. I'm guessing they just enjoy watching a foreigner reacting to what they think is their everyday stuff.
Yeah, exactly. People enjoy that, and also I have a lot of overseas Chinese that maybe miss home. So I get a lot of, we do a lot of city guides. Like obviously we just mentioned all the places we've been to. So we kind of try and do like these in-depth guides about the place, and a lot of overseas are like, oh, it's my hometown, I miss it. And I watched your video to kind of remember all the nice things and almost take them on like a travel journey. So that's been really nice. And I think especially this year, our audience has developed a lot more. And it's such a kind of broad range. So it's been nice to have people in China kind of saying nice things about how we're reacting. Or I did a food video recently, oh yeah, that's my favorite food too, or you should come to the south and try this. So it's been kind of nice to have that.
So what is it like? You say you're obviously doing this YouTube channel with your husband. He's mostly behind the camera doing the filming and the editing. What's it like being a married couple and then also working on something as grand as a YouTube channel? Because it's not an easy task, is it?
No, it's not an easy task. It's a lot of hard work, a lot harder than I think people realize. Oh, it's just awful. No, I'm completely lying. Actually, we really enjoy it. Before we came to China, we spent 24 hours a day together traveling.
Yeah.
And so if you can get through that, you can get through anything. So,
I've heard people say that.
Yeah.
It's a good stress test.
Definitely. And I think, especially moved to Nanjing, and we kind of worked together as well, but then we moved to Beijing and we don't work together anymore. So it's also really nice that we can be creative together and have this project. And we've also got a very similar mindset. We like the same things.
Yeah.
We find the same things interesting. Obviously, that's why we're married. And we have different strengths that we can bring to all of our videos.
Yeah.
So we can kind of collaborate really well on them together. But you do have to be all in because we both work full time.
Yeah.
So we have to fit this in at the weekends, and it is a lot of work. But it's enjoyable and we enjoy doing it. But I have roped him in to being in front of the camera a little bit. And I'm not sure if he likes it or doesn't like it. But yeah, he's appeared in a few of our videos recently. We've started kind of doing some more podcast style where it's just a bit chatty. One reason is because I think people find it quite interesting to have us both interact together, and it's just a different style of video.
Yeah.
And a second reason is to ease the editing process, because our videos can be pretty pretty heavy on the editing.
Pretty heavy on the editing.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of time to finish
time.
these videos. It does.
Yeah.
And sometimes I don't think people realize that it's not just shooting the video and like the planning and the scripting perhaps, but the editing is where you put the story together the way that you want it, and that can take an awful long time.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, we really, really focus on planning, which I know some people do to a degree, but I mean, we know exactly the shots, where we're going to do it, the scripts and everything, because it makes the editing a lot easier. But Jack just loves B-roll, so there's going to be...
B-roll is amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I shoot a ton of B-roll myself whenever I shoot anything. So, I mean, B-roll is king.
If you're shooting one video, that's great, but I think this content from this trip is just going to go on for, I mean, it's great, it's going to go on for months, but...
It's good. So you've been touring around Chongqing for the past couple of days. Can you tell me a little bit about how you felt when you came into the city and how this city has sort of shown itself to you, what you have experienced over the past couple of days?
Yeah, well, we've done a lot. I'm pretty tired, but it's been amazing. So I'm really good with navigating places, but Chongqing has been, not going to lie, it's been a little bit tricky. So I've been very thankful that you have, I've been very thankful that you have provided us with a little bit of help, because I'm not sure whether we would have found all the places on our own. And before we came, there's not that much information. iChongqing has all the information, so that's been really, really great. Because Beijing is super easy to navigate. It's just a grid system. So here, I was like, and everything's on different levels.
Yeah, everything's layered.
But then also that's what makes it so interesting and so amazing. So that's definitely been probably the struggle, but thankfully we've had some help. And now I'm kind of a bit more used to it, and I'm like, oh, there's a place that I recognize. I have no idea how we got here, but now I can move on.
Now I sort of know where I am.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, a lot of people talk about Chongqing Cave as being a great example because it meets the road at two different levels. So there is the lower level and the upper one. And I think you've told me an experience about finding your hotel.
Yeah, so we were in there. We stayed in there for the first few nights, and yeah, it's very confusing. Our first night, because we got dropped off on the lower level, and you have to all the way down and around, and then to get in, and we didn't realize you could get into the hotel from the full floor. We had to walk all the way up because it's so busy, and it's like a maze. It's confusing, but if you're kind of just wandering, it's fine. If you're trying to get somewhere,
if you're trying to get somewhere specific, then it can be
very confusing.
They're actually I just happen to know this. They're launching an app themselves, like a specific Chongqing Cave app that'll have its own GPS system in it for finding specific shops. And stuff.
I think that's
that's going to be so good.
Yeah, I think actually more places should have that. We thought that about Zhangjiajie as well. Like it should have. You should be able to do that. Like because it's such a great idea
Yeah.
to be able to find things so
I can
easy.
understand that it's difficult, but I mean, we have the technology, don't we?
Yeah, exactly. Do it.
Should be
Great
able to.
idea. Yeah, so that's probably our struggle.
Do it. Do it right now. Okay, so about your Chongqing experience, what do you think you liked the most about your trip so far? Because you're not done yet, but
No.
from what you've seen so far, what do you think about Chongqing you like the most?
So we had a really, really great day the other day. It was probably my favorite day. We did some amazing things, and it was just stuff that we were really interested in. So we went to the graffiti street. And originally we were like, maybe we won't make a video. And as soon as we got there, we were like, no, we love this. Well, we need to make videos. So I was quickly making a script, and Jack's flying the drone. And it's just such an interesting place. And I just found it so, because I studied art, and I just really love like art and architecture and things like that. And I just really enjoyed how they completely transformed this street. It was super interesting to me. And then we only managed to get about 100 meters. We went to the tea house.
Yeah.
And that was just, wow, I could have spent all day in there, literally just sipping tea and just people watching, because it just had this it was an amazing building, and it had this real just mix of generations. There was like the old guys who had been there all their life. And then there's, people who have gone there because it's a cool place to go, and everybody has different stories. It's just, I don't know, I could feel the kind of the heritage there, the culture, and for me, it was just the perfect place. And then we went down to Jung bookstore by the railway tracks. And the guy who owned that, he was just so nice, and he had so many stories to tell us, and it was just such an interesting place. Yeah. And it was that was my favorite thing. These were my favorite things to do. And then we went for hot pot underneath in the bomb shelter, and it was just the perfect day for me. It was like a real mix of good food, like interesting
art
people,
and culture.
art. So, but we still got a few more days. It might get even better.
Yeah. So obviously you're filming a lot of videos. What are some of the videos that you think your audience should be looking forward to the most? What are some of your favorite projects that you're working on?
Well, obviously we're doing a couple of food videos, which my audience are probably expecting because they know how much I love food. A lot. So we're doing a couple of food videos, food and hot pot. And then we're going to do an infrastructure video, which I think is really interesting because we did do one in Beijing, but wow, I mean, Chongqing is like so different.
It is.
And there's so many different types of infrastructure and different ways to get around. And I just think, that's going to be a pretty interesting one. I'm quite looking forward to that. And also when we just arrived, we decided to do an architecture one, and we've kind of done some interviews with some people, and actually find the architecture here just amazing. So that's kind of that might be like a dark horse one that wasn't meant to be, and then it's gonna maybe be a really good one. I hope anyway. It all depends on Jack, really. It always depends on Jack.
Always depends on Jack.
Yeah, and we actually did a first impressions once as well, so that was more of a podcast style. Yeah. So hopefully that'll create the base, and then they can look forward to
start from there.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So, how is Chongqing different from Beijing, where you live now, or even Nanjing, where you lived before? What are some of the good things and maybe some of the worst things about Chongqing?
So, okay, let me first compare Chongqing to Nanjing.
Sure.
So what I found that is similar is the fact that everyone's like really friendly and wanting to talk to you a lot. Like I can't believe how friendly everybody is here, and we get our picture taken a lot, which we kind of did there, which I'm happy to do. I think it's quite sweet, and a lot of people have tried to practice their English with us because I haven't seen that many foreigners in Chongqing, and it's similar to Nanjing in that way. Beijing compared to Chongqing. So what I find interesting is, like I mentioned earlier, kind of getting around.
Yeah.
So I do find Beijing really easy. And it's really flat as well, so I can hop on a bike and get... And what I find quite interesting is Beijing almost has like sections of kind of old and new, whereas Chongqing, everything is like really
Mixed
intertwined.
Intertwined, yeah, that's a good word for
it. And it like, it's so coherent with each other. It works so well. And I think that's why it looks so different. And that's why it's so interesting, because it almost feels like a little bit spread out into sections in Beijing, whereas that here, everything's like...
Everything is just everywhere.
Which just impresses me a lot. So yeah, I find that really interesting. I don't really have any bad things. Every city in China is different and amazing in their own way. One thing which has surprised me though, is I thought before I came, everyone's like, oh my gosh, Chongqing, it's so spicy, it's so spicy, it's so spicy.
Yeah.
I don't like spicy food. I'm not gonna lie. I really, really hate Szechuan pepper as well. And I say that. And what has surprised me is actually the food's not been that spicy and Szechuan-y. And I think, like Szechuan peppery, maybe they see me and they think, okay, she's a foreigner, she can't handle it. Great, happy with that. So far it's been okay. And also what I find is maybe, this is my theory, and I might be completely wrong, but when I have a dish in Beijing and it has Szechuan pepper in, I can really taste it. It's really strong and it's overpowering. Yeah. Whereas maybe here, because they use it in everything, pretty much, they use it sparingly and it's just the right amount, so it's not too overpowering.
It sounds like a valid theory, but I think it's also because I tend to agree. I think this might be a good way to look at it. I think because they use it so much, they know how to balance it more. Where someone else who's just like, oh, we need to make like a Sichuan style dish. That's how you do it.
Exactly.
Like you just toss it in there.
When I have it in Beijing, I really don't like it. I can really tell. But here, I'm actually like, oh no, it complements it really well, and it's starting to change my... Maybe I do like Sichuan pepper.
It might be a mixture of both, because I know for me, whenever I order food somewhere, they will come and they will ask me, how spicy can you eat? And they always just assume the lowest level of spice. And I'm just like, that's good. Because,
that's good enough
because
for me.
I can't do spicy food either. I used to be able to, and I used to be able to eat it just fine. But then later, it's my body just goes, no, you shouldn't have done that. Bad idea.
Well, you see, for me, I just find it too hot. So, yeah, that has surprised me. That's probably been my biggest surprise. I've been able to handle the heat. But like you said, they're probably taking pity on me. They're like, she definitely can't handle it. She definitely can't handle it. And I'm thankful for that. That's good.
Yeah, thank you for the consideration.
Yeah.
Right, that is it. Thank you so much for coming and for being on the show and sharing your Chongqing experience with us today.
Well, thank you very much for having us in Chongqing. We've had an amazing experience so far, and you guys have helped make it even better, because there's some things that we would never have found on our own, and hopefully our videos are going to be amazing.
We look forward to seeing them all.
Yeah.
That is it for this episode of our Culture Cafe. Thank you again, Nico, for coming.
No problem.
And we'll see you in the next one.